is the Earth, the planet and our solar system that we live on. However, our planet is not on a good path for continuing to sustain life. The Earth is facing the accelerating the detrimental effects of climate, also referred to as global warming. Well, what exactly is the climate change? Climate change describes the change in the average conditions, such as temperature and rainfall in a region over a long period of time. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or also known as NASA, have observed Earth's surface is warming, and many of the warmest years on record have happened in the past 20 years. Moreover, measuring the future impact of climate change is very challenging. Because scientists' climate change projections cannot be completely exact, and because there are many different factors that come into play, such as the risk of extreme weather events and rising temperatures. Many developing countries are also uniquely vulnerable, says Kelly Levin of the World Resources Institute. Their livelihoods are dependent on natural resources. And if those natural resources are affected by climate change, their ability to feed their families and make a living is significantly impacted. Every problem must end with the solution. So, in order to overcome effect from climate change, the law must be announced to be a guideline for a human being. Unfortunately, there is still not have any law regarding climate change in Malaysia. According to Thomas 2028 stated that Energy, Science, Technology, Environment and Climate Change Minister Yobi Yin said her ministry was studying the need for a Climate Change Act. She indicated that it would take 2 years before a bill could be tabled in Parliament if such a law was found to be necessary. There are plans towards law on climate change that are in the process in Malaysia. The law should set legally binding targets for the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions in line with treaties such as the Paris Agreement, which aims to limit the rise of the average global temperature to 1.5 degrees by the end of this century. Malaysia is also working with Britain to develop its climate change and low-carbon transition actions. Then, they want to shape its legislation by using the mold of Britain's Climate Change Act, which targets a minimum of 80% reduction in carbon emissions by 2050 from 1990 levels. For most people, climate change and global warming are more disruptive to the economy than personal health. However, the effects of global warming are much deeper and will leave an impact on all the world's population. Believe it or not, global warming has killed more than 1 million people worldwide since the year 2000, either directly or indirectly. The World Health Organization (WHO), which released the statistics, explains that half of the deaths occurred in Asia-Pacific, the most populous continent. The effects of this problem will continue for a long time and will only get worse if it continues to be ignored or failed to be controlled. As a result, the next generation that will bear the full impact of the greed of the current generation pollutes the environment solely for wealth and economic progress. Malaysians may be able to adapt to high temperatures and scorching heat as they are accustomed to the tropical climate, as the saying goes. However, people who are accustomed to living in cold climates may not be able to adapt and are now recording an increase in deaths due to heat stroke. A heat stroke will cause the failure of all organs of the body to function, just as it does in patients with fever. Similarly, pneumonia caused by the widespread spread of bacteria that invade the lungs due to hot and humid weather, as well as several other factors. Increased temperature will also encourage the reproduction of vectors such as mice, mosquitoes, lice and bugs. According to World Health Organization, the spread of mosquito-like vectors causes diseases such as malaria, dengue and yellow fever, which are beginning to be recorded in Europe in areas that were once cold. This was evident when cold climate countries such as Nepal and Bhutan recorded the first cases of malaria in the highlands of the two countries. Meanwhile, mice are also seen to breed more easily in these hot and humid weather. During floods, the level of cleanliness is very difficult to maintain, especially water hygiene. The difficulty of getting clean water supply will expose flax to water contaminated with various types of germs. Personal health will definitely be threatened if contaminated water is used as drinking water, cooking, washing or cleaning. The number of cases of diarrhea, dysentery and various waterborne diseases is seen to increase dramatically during the flood season. This situation is exacerbated by the increase in mosquito-borne cases due to mosquito breeding in stagnant water patches left behind by floods. reservoir is a strategic place for germs that multiply rapidly because they get an adequate supply of food from decaying plants and carcasses. This problem also has a bad effect on those who like to exercise and relax outside. This is because greenhouse gases such as carbon monoxide are now increasingly in the air, especially in urban areas and areas with a large number of vehicles. When this gas is inhaled too much during exercise or recreation, it causes the blood oxygen content to drop sharply, and the high carbon monoxide gas content can affect the body and heart. There are two effects from climate change that involve in the political issues, which are on the bushfires and haze problem. From bushfires effect, we can look at on the Australia, where they have faced a devastating start to its fire season in late 2019. And things swiftly got worse before rains helped contain many of the worst fires in February 2028, 2020. Dozens of fires erupted in New South Wales, Australia, prompting the government to declare a state of emergency in November 2019. According to one estimate from the University of Sydney, more than 1 billion mammals, birds, and reptiles likely lost their lives in the blazes. 8,000 koalas, a third of all the koalas in New South Wales, are believed to have perished. And about 30% of the koalas' habitat has also been wiped out. The continent is home to 244 species that are not found anywhere else. The region also has the highest rate of native mammals becoming extinct over the past 200 years. The conflict on politics that happened in Australia is when the reluctance of the Australian government to make more progressive policies on climate change despite a national disaster is an overview of the politicization and partisan tendencies of the issue of climate change in their country. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison faced an irate crowd. Some refused to shake his hand, where this angry reception came after he enjoyed an ill-timed vacation to Hawaii shortly before Christmas. Mawson Culpin, 2020. Morrison's office initially denied he was away, all while photos of him wearing board shorts and throwing up a surfer sign circulated on social media. A contrite Morrison was forced to return early and solve the crisis that arose immediately. Next, another effects from climate change are from the haze that happened in Indonesia. It is a toxic haze from rampant forest fires in Indonesia and air quality plummeting. Indonesia is the world's biggest producer of palm oil, and the demand for the commodity has been rising. This means there is need for extra land for palm oil plantations. During the dry season, Indonesian farmers use fire to clear land, often for palm and pulp plantations. But the flames can rage out of control to produce a choking haze that spreads to neighbors like Singapore and Malaysia. Reuters, 2019. According to Kharuddin, 2019, the smoke was caused by forest fires that got out of hand after being used to clear land for agriculture. Despite oftentimes originating in Indonesia, the haze there often blows over to neighboring Malaysia and Singapore, causing flight cancellations, school closures, and soaring rates of respiratory illness. What is the conflict on politics in Indonesia that arises from this haze problem? This conflict happened when Malaysia officially complains over haze as Indonesia forests burn. As Jakarta detected a spike in the number of hotspots indicating worsening forest fires across the archipelago, former Malaysia's Science Ministry Yobiyin urged Indonesia to take immediate action to fight haze. Hermes, 2019. Reuters, 2019, mentioned in a statement, Malaysia's Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation said it would send a diplomatic note to Indonesia, so immediate action will be taken to put out the fires and prevent repeated burning. Indonesia faces global pressure to put an end to slash and burn clearance of land, especially as fires have also burned swaths part of the Southeast Asia. The responsibility to preserve the environment should be borne by all the people of the world and should not be left to the government or world organizations alone. As the saying goes, the light is equally heavy to carry the same weight as borne. The people also play an important role by caring for the universal well-being and not just focusing on their